A tycoon welcomed a cleaner's daughter to a casual chess match. He was unaware she was a genius who would transform his life after defeating him. Before we jump into the tale, leave a comment below and share where you're tuning in from. Enjoy the narrative. Richard Sterling owned all that wealth could acquire. A penthouse towering over Manhattan, a private plane, and riches surpassing many nations. Yet, at 45, the tech mogul felt more hollow than ever. Success had grown mundane, expected, stifling. That Tuesday night, he lingered at Sterling Technologies again, dodging the stark quiet of his estate. The office emptied as workers left, leaving only the faint buzz of machines and the distant whir of a vacuum. Mr. Sterling, a soft voice broke his reverie. Sarah Johnson, the evening cleaner, stood at his office door with her cart. "I hate to disturb you, but is it okay if my daughter stays in the lobby?" Her sitter canceled, and I can't skip work. Richard glanced up briefly from his screen. Sure, just keep her silent. An hour later, curiosity piqued his interest. He spotted a young girl seated cross-legged on the marble floor, engrossed in a worn chess set. Her dark hair hung in messy waves, and her tattered sneakers had holes at the tips. She looked no older than 7. "You know chess?" Richard asked, intrigued. The girl met his gaze with sharp brown eyes. "My dad taught me before he passed away. Mama says I'm pretty skilled." Her voice held a wisdom beyond her years. "I'm Emma," she said, offering a small hand with the poise of someone older. "You're Mr. Sterling, right? Mama works for you." Richard sat opposite her, amused. "How about a game, Emma? I was a chess champ at Harvard." Emma's eyes gleamed with eagerness. "Really? That sounds great. But fair warning, I hate losing." As they arranged the pieces, Richard felt a spark he hadn't known in years. Genuine interest. This young girl in her worn clothes and bold resolve was about to teach him a vital lesson. Emma moved her first pawn with careful precision. "Your turn, Mr. Sterling." Richard grinned smugly and made his opening play. 20 minutes later, his grin was gone. This couldn't be. A 7-year-old couldn't possibly. "Checkmate," Emma said softly, her quiet voice resonating in the grand lobby. Richard stared at the board, stunned. In 23 moves, this child had methodically unraveled his strategy with a master's precision. Her approach was impeccable, her execution crushing. "How did you—" he started, but paused when he saw tears in Emma's eyes. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to upset you. Please don't tell Mama I misbehaved." Something broke in Richard's heart. This gifted child was apologizing for her remarkable talent, scared of upsetting adults who should be praising her skill. "Emma," he said kindly, "that was the most stunning chess game I've ever seen. You're not in trouble. You're incredible." Just then, Sarah appeared with her cleaning tools. "Emma, sweetie, I told you not to disturb Mr. Sterling." Richard stood, his thoughts racing. "Mrs. Johnson, your daughter just outplayed me at chess. She's remarkably gifted." Sarah's face reddened with shame. "I'm so sorry, sir. She gets too excited sometimes. We'll leave you alone." "Wait," Richard called, but they were already heading to the elevator. As the door shut, Emma turned and waved goodbye with a smile that lingered in his mind for days. That night, Richard lay awake. He kept picturing Emma's brilliant mind confined by a world of limits, and how her mother's eyes held a despair he'd never seen before. He had no clue that this fleeting meeting would reveal a truth that would reshape all he understood about life, meaning, and true wealth. Richard entered the office the next morning with a rare sense of drive. For the first time in years, something beyond reports and meetings held his focus. He kept recalling Emma's exact moves, the way she studied the board with fierce focus. "Linda," he called to his assistant, "I need the employee file for Sarah Johnson. She's on the night cleaning team." Linda raised an eyebrow but complied. 20 minutes later, she placed a slim folder on his desk. Not much to see. Mr. Sterling, single mom, hired 6 months ago. Last job was at Mercy General Hospital, also cleaning. Richard flipped open the file, scanning the brief details. Sarah Johnson, age 28. No college listed. Emergency contact, none. Address, 1247 Riverside Drive, apartment 3B. That evening, Richard found a reason to stay late again. When Sarah arrived with her cart, he was waiting in the lobby. "Mrs. Johnson," he said, rising from the same spot where he'd played chess with Emma. "I was hoping Emma might be here tonight." Sarah's face tightened. "She's at home with her assignments, Mr. Sterling. I got a neighbor to look after her for a bit. I hope last night didn't cause any trouble." Sarah's laugh was sharp. "Talent doesn't cover the rent, sir. Emma's bright, but brains don't change our address or what we can buy." Richard felt an odd tug in his chest. Where did she learn to play like that? For a moment, Sarah's hard shell softened. Her father. He was unique. Before he passed, he shared all his chess knowledge with her. Said it would teach her to solve problems differently. "I'd like to meet with you tomorrow," Richard said on impulse. "About Emma. There could be possibilities." "Mr. Sterling," Sarah cut in, her tone steady but polite. "I appreciate your concern. But Emma and we've learned not to trust promises from folks like you. We manage on our own." As she turned away, Richard realized, for the first time in his adult life, someone had brushed him off, and somehow that fueled his resolve. The next day, Richard did something he hadn't done in 2 decades. He drove himself. No driver, no security. Just him and his thoughts in a Tesla, heading to Manhattan's overlooked side. Riverside Drive was nothing like his usual haunts. The building was old, with cracked windows and fire escapes that seemed to droop. Kids played in the courtyard, their shouts bouncing off graffiti-covered brick walls. Richard climbed to the 3rd floor, his polished shoes clicking on worn linoleum. Apartment 3B's door was layered with so much paint, the number was faint. Through the thin walls, he heard a conversation that stopped him cold. "Mama, why can't I join the school chess club?" Emma's voice, muffled but clear. "Sweetie, the chess club costs money for competitions and gear. Money we don't have right now, but I'm good at it. Really good. Maybe if I got better, I could win prizes and help us." The silence that followed was heavy. Richard leaned closer to the door, feeling like an outsider but unable to leave. "Emma, listen closely." Sarah's voice was thick with feeling. "You're the cleverest girl I know. But in our world, being clever isn't enough. Wealthy folks have doors open for them that we don't. They have networks, schooling, resources. We work twice as hard for half the reward. Like Mr. Sterling? He seemed kind. Mr. Sterling lives in another world, honey. People like him notice us when it suits them. Then they move on." Richard felt like he'd been struck. He stood there for 10 minutes, hearing Emma recite chess moves aloud, describing her tactics to imaginary opponents with a fire that showed her true passion. When he finally knocked, the apartment went quiet. Sarah opened the door, her face flashing surprise, shame, and something like worry. "Mr. Sterling, how did you—" "I'd like to talk with you both." The apartment was tinier than his closet, but spotless and neat. Emma sat at a small table, her chess set laid out, solving complex puzzles from a library book. "Emma," Richard said, sitting across from her, "tell me about what you're working on." For the next hour, Richard watched in awe as Emma explained intricate chess strategies with a master's ease. She had invented her own notation, crafted unique opening moves, and could predict 15 steps ahead. "Where did you learn all this?" he asked. Emma glanced at her mother, who nodded hesitantly. "I read every chess book in the library. Mrs. Patterson there sometimes gets special ones for me, and I watch videos online at the community center when they have free computer time." Richard felt a shift inside him. This wasn't just skill. This was brilliance trapped by a world that didn't match Emma's potential. "Mrs. Johnson," he said carefully, "I'd like to make an offer." Sarah's guard went up instantly. "Mr. Sterling, we don't need handouts." "It's not a handout," Richard said, his voice firmer than he felt. "It's an investment. Emma has a talent that could lead her anywhere. But talents need nurturing, coaching, opportunities." Emma glanced between them, clearly sensing the room's tension. "What exactly are you offering?" Sarah asked, arms crossed. Richard had thought this through all day. "I want to provide Emma with a chess coach, professional training, tournament, entry fees, and set up a college fund for her future." "In exchange for what?" Sarah's voice carried the weight of someone who knew nothing was free. "Nothing. No catches. I just want to see what Emma can achieve with the right support." Emma's face brightened. "Mama, that means I could compete in real tournaments against other strong players." Sarah's expression was a mix of hope and doubt. "Mr. Sterling, people like you don't just give opportunities to people like us. What's your real motive?" The question lingered like a test. Richard realized he didn't have a clear answer because he wasn't entirely sure himself. All he knew was that seeing Emma's brilliance go to waste felt wrong. "I want to do something that matters," he said at last. "I have more wealth than I could use in 3 lives, and I've never spent it on anything meaningful. Emma's important." Sarah studied him for a long moment. "And when you lose interest, when the excitement fades, what happens to Emma then?" "I won't lose interest." "You say that now, but Emma's not a hobby. She's a little girl who's already lost her dad. She doesn't need another adult who might vanish." Emma, quietly listening, moved chess pieces absently. Suddenly, she spoke. "Mama, maybe we could try, just for a little bit." Sarah looked at her daughter, and Richard saw her resolve waver. "Emma, honey, it's complex, but you always say smart people solve complex problems." Emma's 7-year-old logic was undeniable. Richard showed them an email on his phone. "I've already reached out to Marcus Williams, a chess master who's trained 3 national youth champions. He's willing to meet Emma this weekend." "Want you already contacted someone?" Sarah's voice sharpened. "Without asking us?" "I wanted to check if it was possible before suggesting it," Richard said, realizing how forward that sounded. "But nothing happens unless you both agree." Emma looked at her mother with pleading eyes. "Mama, please, I'll still help at home and do well in school. I just want to see how good I can be." Sarah closed her eyes, her inner conflict clear. When she opened them, her expression had shifted. "1 month," she said firmly. "A 1-month trial. If Emma enjoys it and it doesn't disrupt school or cause issues, we'll reconsider. But Mr. Sterling, if this becomes a problem for us, it ends. Understood?" "Perfectly clear," Richard said, hiding his excitement. Emma leapt up and hugged her mother. "Thank you, Mama. I won't let you down." As Richard prepared to leave, Emma called out, "Mr. Sterling, thank you for believing in me." Walking to his car, Richard felt something rare. Real excitement for the future. He had no clue that within weeks, he'd uncover the true reason Emma's father taught her chess, and how that discovery would reshape everything. Saturday morning, Richard paced his office, glancing at his watch every few minutes. He'd arranged for Marcus Williams and Emma to meet at a quiet chess club in Midtown, a neutral space that wouldn't overwhelm Sarah. Marcus Williams was a tall, distinguished man in his 60s, with silver hair and eyes that seemed to anticipate every move. In a conversation, he'd been doubtful when Richard first called, but agreed to meet Emma after hearing about her win against him. "Mr. Sterling," Marcus said as they shook hands, "I've seen many parents overrate their kids' skills. I hope you know raw talent is just the start." "I understand," Richard replied, though he felt defensive of Emma before she even arrived. Sarah and Emma entered the chess club hand in hand, both visibly anxious. Emma wore her best dress, a simple blue one, slightly worn but clean and neatly pressed. Sarah's hair was pulled back tightly, her stance guarded. "Emma," Richard said, kneeling to her level, "I'd like you to meet Marcus Williams. He's going to play a game with you." Emma's eyes widened as she looked at Marcus. "Are you really a chess master?" Marcus smiled, his serious demeanor softening. "I am, and I hear you're quite skilled yourself. Shall we see what you can do?" They settled at a board in the club's corner. Richard and Sarah observed from nearby seats, the air between them thick with unease. "Emma," Marcus said, arranging the pieces, "play your usual game. Don't worry about impressing anyone. Just enjoy chess." What followed stunned everyone. Emma didn't merely play chess. She moved with an instinct that seemed beyond her years. Her plays were inventive, bold, and tactically flawless. More strikingly, she articulated her thought process with a clarity that astonished Marcus. "I'm placing my knight here because in 6 moves it'll strengthen my attack on your king's side," she said casually, as if chatting about the day. Marcus started to sweat. This 7-year-old wasn't just skilled, she was phenomenal. By the 30th move, he was battling to stay in the game. "Emma," he said, examining the board, "where did you learn this opening pattern?" "My daddy taught me." He called it the shadow variation because it seems like you're not planning anything, but you are. Marcus's face paled. "Shadow variation? Emma, tell me more about what your daddy shared with you." Emma glanced at her mother, who nodded reassuringly. "He showed me lots of unique moves. He said they were secret strategies, only clever people could grasp. He made me promise to use them only when I was ready." "Emma," Marcus said cautiously, "what was your daddy's name?" "David Johnson. But before he married Mama, it was David Petrov." A chess piece slipped from Marcus's hand, clattering onto the board. Richard saw the master's face drain of color. "Sarah," Marcus said, his voice barely a murmur, "we need to speak privately." As Marcus and Sarah stepped aside for a quiet talk, Richard watched Emma, still absorbed in the board, lost in the game. He couldn't hear Marcus's words, but he saw Sarah's face shift through shock, disbelief, and something like dread. When they returned, Marcus sat across from Emma with a new respect. "Emma, your father was an exceptional man, and you, young lady, are going to be something incredible." "Does that mean you'll coach me?" Emma asked, eyes full of hope. "Emma," Marcus said gravely, "it would be my privilege." As they prepared to leave, Richard pulled Marcus aside. "What was that about? What did you tell Sarah?" Marcus glanced at Emma, who was showing her mother the final board position. "Mr. Sterling, that girl isn't just gifted. She was taught by someone who understood chess at a level few ever reach. David Petrov was a legend, a grandmaster who vanished from the chess world 15 years ago. We all wondered where he went. And now you know. Now I know. He fell in love, changed his name, and spent his final years passing his knowledge to his daughter." Marcus paused. "Mr. Sterling, Emma doesn't just have potential. She has the groundwork to become one of the greatest chess players ever. The question is, are you ready for what that entails?" Richard looked at Emma, laughing at something her mother said. "What does it entail?" "It means that child will reshape the chess world, and likely your world too." 3 weeks into Emma's training, Richard found himself more eager for her lessons than any corporate meeting. He'd begun attending every session, captivated by watching her mind tackle complex problems with razor-sharp precision. Marcus had been right about Emma's potential. In just 21 days, she'd advanced at a pace that defied logic. She was already playing at a level that typically took years to reach. "Mr. Sterling," Marcus said one evening as they watched Emma solve a challenging puzzle, I need to tell you something about David Petrov that Sarah doesn't know. Richard's focus sharpened. What do you mean? David Petrov wasn't just a grandmaster. He was working on something groundbreaking when he vanished. A new chess approach blending classic strategy with psychological tactics. He was crafting methods that could give players unmatched edges. And you think he taught these to Emma? Marcus nodded solemnly. I'm sure of it. Some of her moves, her strategies, they're beyond anything in standard chess texts. David was forging a new form of the game, and Emma is his living legacy. That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He dove into researching David Petrov online, finding articles about a brilliant young grandmaster who disappeared at his career's peak. The photos showed a man with intense eyes and Emma's same resolute look. The next morning, he made a choice that would alter everything. He called Sarah. Mrs. Johnson, I need to ask something important about Emma's father. Mr. Sterling, I don't think that's appropriate. Please. Marcus told me about David's chess career, but I need to know about the man you married. Who was he really? A long silence followed. When Sarah spoke, her voice carried grief. David was brilliant, not just at chess, but in everything. He saw order where others saw mess. He could predict people's actions before they knew themselves. Why did he abandon chess? He said the chess world was rotten, that some would misuse his ideas for wrong purposes. He wanted to vanish, to live a simple life. Sarah's voice broke. When Emma was born, he called her his greatest work. He spent every moment teaching her, preparing her. Preparing her for what? I don't know. He died before he could finish. But Richard, Sarah had never used his first name. Before he died, he made me promise something. He said if Emma ever showed true genius at chess, I should be cautious about who I trusted. He said some would want to exploit her. Richard felt a chill. What kind of people? He never clarified, but he was scared of something. In his final weeks, he kept saying Emma was unique, that she'd have chances he never had, but also risks. Sarah, where are David's chess materials? His notes? His games? I kept everything. Boxes of notebooks, game breakdowns, strategies. I don't understand them. Emma sometimes looks through them, but most are too complex even, for her. I need to see them. Why? Richard gazed out his office window at the city below. Because I think Marcus is right. Emma isn't just talented. She's carrying on something her father began. And if that's true, we need to understand what we're facing. That evening, Richard sat in Sarah's small apartment, surrounded by boxes of David Petrov's life's work. The notebooks were packed with diagrams, strategies, and what seemed like psychological profiles of top players. But it was the final notebook that sent a shiver through Richard. On the last page, in David's neat handwriting, were the words, Emma will complete what I began. She will transform chess, but they will come for her. Trust no one fully. Protect her gift, but above all, protect her heart. Below that, a list of names Richard recognized. Wealthy tycoons, chess federation leaders, people from his own circles. Next to each name, a single word. Dangerous. Richard's name wasn't on the list. David Petrov had died before Richard took an interest in chess. But as Richard read the notebooks, he realized Emma wasn't just a prodigy. She was the heir to a legacy some powerful people would kill to control. And he was the only one standing between Emma and those who would exploit her extraordinary talent for their own ends. The true game was just starting. Richard spent the next week investigating every name in David Petrov's notebook. What he uncovered sent chills down his spine. Viktor Klov, a Russian tycoon who controlled multiple chess academies in Eastern Europe. Dr. Hinrich Brenner, a German executive tied to performance-enhancing drug controversies in competitive chess. Chen Jing, a Chinese tech magnate quietly buying up chess AI firms. Each shared a common thread. They had all tried to enlist David Petrov before he vanished. Richard called Marcus urgently. I need to see you tonight. They met at a diner in Queens, far from Richard's usual circles. Marcus looked weary, aged beyond his years. I've been digging too, Marcus said before Richard could speak. David Petrov wasn't just crafting new chess tactics. He was developing a system to predict human behavior through chess patterns, useful for military strategy, business deals, psychological tactics. And Emma has access to it all. She's living it. Every match she plays, every move she makes. She's instinctively using principles most grandmasters never grasp. But, Richard, we have a problem. Marcus slid a newspaper across the table. The headline read, "Young chess prodigy rises from obscurity." Emma's photo was front and center, taken at her latest tournament. She's too skilled to stay unnoticed, Marcus continued. The chess world is buzzing. People are asking who she is, where she came from, who's coaching her. Richard felt a pit in his stomach. What kind of people? The kind David Petrov feared. I've had 3 calls this week from talent scouts asking about Emma. One was from Kozlov Industries. That night, Richard couldn't sleep. He drove to Emma's apartment building, parking across the street to check that everything seemed safe. At 2 a.m., he spotted a black sedan at the block's end, its occupants watching the building. Richard's protective instincts surged. He approached the car, tapping the driver's window. 2 men in sharp suits looked up with cold, calculating eyes. "Can I assist you, gentlemen?" Richard asked, his voice calm despite his pounding heart. "Just enjoying the night, Mr. Sterling," the driver said with a faint Russian accent. Nice neighborhood. They knew who he was. They knew why he was there. "I think you'd enjoy it more elsewhere," Richard said firmly. The passenger leaned forward. "We're just curious about the young chess player who lives here. Very gifted girl. We'd like to offer her opportunities." "She's not interested." "How do you know?" "We haven't made our offer yet." Richard memorized the license plate as they drove off. The next morning, his private security team confirmed his fears. The car was registered to a firm owned by Victor Klov. Emma was being watched, and now so was he. Despite the rising threat, Emma's chess career was soaring. In 6 weeks, she had won 3 youth tournaments and was being invited to face adult players. Her unique style was confounding opponents twice her age. "She doesn't play like a child," Grandmaster Patricia Wells remarked after Emma beat her in an exhibition match. "She plays like someone who grasps chess at a level I'm still chasing." Richard hired a security firm to quietly protect Emma and Sarah, but he kept the surveillance from them. Sarah was already anxious about the attention Emma was getting, and he didn't want to heighten her worry. "Mr. Sterling," Sarah said after Emma's latest win, "I'm getting nervous." Emma's picture was in Chess Monthly. People are starting to recognize her on the street. That's normal for rising chess stars, Richard reassured her, though he felt far from confident. "Is it normal for strange men to ask our neighbors about us? Because that's happening too." Richard's heart sank. What kind of questions? About Emma's father. About where she learned to play. About who's funding her career. Sarah's voice was taut with fear. "Richard, I'm scared. This feels like what David warned me about." That evening, Richard made a choice that would shift everything. He called a meeting with Marcus and Sarah in his private conference room. "I need to tell you both something." He explained what he'd learned about David Petrov's research and the people now interested in Emma. Sarah's face paled. "You're saying my daughter is in danger because of chess?" "I'm saying Emma represents something far bigger than chess. Her father's work, the techniques he taught her, could be worth hundreds of millions to the right people." Marcus nodded grimly. David was shaping the future of competitive strategy. Emma is the only one who truly understands his system. "So, what do we do?" Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. "We protect her," Richard said. "But we need to be strategic. If we hide Emma completely, it'll only make them more persistent. We need to control the story." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked. We make Emma so public, so visible that no one can touch her without the world noticing. We turn her into a star. Her fame becomes her shield. Sarah stood abruptly. Absolutely not. I won't let you turn my daughter into a spectacle. Sarah, hear me out. These people thrive in secrecy. They can't afford to be linked to harming a child in the public eye. If Emma becomes famous enough, she becomes untouchable. And if you're wrong? If making her famous just makes her a bigger target? Richard met her eyes. Then we'll face it together, but hiding isn't working. They've already found her. The next morning, Richard's worst fears were confirmed. Emma's photo appeared on the front page of the New York Times. 7-year-old chess genius stuns masters. The article detailed her rapid rise and speculated about her enigmatic background. By noon, Richard had received 12 calls from talent management firms, all eager to represent Emma. 3 were fronts for the men listed in David Petrov's notebook. The hunters were closing in. An invitation arrived on elegant letterhead. The International Youth Chess Foundation cordially invites Emma Johnson to participate in our exclusive training program in Switzerland. Richard read it with growing unease. The foundation was reputable, well-funded, and had produced several world champions. It was also quietly supported by Victor Klov. It's a trap, Marcus said when Richard showed him the letter. They want to isolate her from us, from her support. But if we decline, Richard replied, it'll look suspicious. Every chess parent would jump at this chance. Sarah was torn. The program offered Emma opportunities she could never provide. Elite training, global exposure, a path to greatness. But her mother's instinct screamed danger. What would David do? She asked. Marcus spoke quietly. David would find a way to turn their trap against them. He was always 3 moves ahead. That's when Richard had an idea, either brilliant or reckless. What if we say yes? Are you insane? Sarah exclaimed. Hear me out. What if we accept, but we go with Emma? All of us. We make it a public spectacle, bring media attention, turn it into a celebration of American chess talent. They can't touch Emma if the world is watching. And if they try anyway? Richard's jaw tightened with resolve. Then they'll learn what happens when someone threatens a child under my protection. The next week, they flew to Switzerland on Richard's private jet, joined by 2 documentary filmmakers, a Sports Illustrated reporter, and Richard's security team. Posing as chess assistants, the Youth Foundation's facility was stunning. A mountain retreat with top-tier chess instruction and luxurious accommodations. Emma was thrilled by the other young players, many already internationally ranked. But Richard noticed details that chilled him. The facility was remote, with spotty cell service. The staff asked too many questions about Emma's background and training methods. And Victor Klov himself was set to arrive the next day. We need to be ready, Richard told Marcus and Sarah that night. Whatever they're planning, it's happening soon. At 3 a.m., Richard's security chief woke him with urgent news. Mr. Sterling, we've intercepted communications. They're planning to approach Emma tomorrow with a private training offer. They want to separate her from the group. Not happening, Richard said, fully alert. There's more. They've been recording her games, studying her style. They're trying to decode her father's methods by analyzing her gameplay. Richard felt a surge of fierce protectiveness. These people viewed Emma not as a brilliant child, but as a treasure trove of intellectual secrets to exploit. Get everyone prepared, he ordered. We're leaving at dawn. But morning brought complications. The roads were oddly blocked by construction, and the nearest airport was shut due to weather. They were trapped, and the real match was about to start. Victor Klov wasn't what Richard expected. The Russian tycoon was polished, soft-spoken, and seemed to genuinely care about chess. He spoke to Emma with respect usually reserved for elite players. You play strikingly like your father, Klov said at their first meeting. David was a colleague, you know. Emma's eyes sparkled. You knew my daddy? I knew him well. We collaborated on projects before he chose a different path. Sarah stiffened beside Richard. This wasn't in David's notebooks. Emma, Klov continued, Your father was working on something groundbreaking, a new way to understand not just chess, but human behavior itself. He believed chess patterns could predict how people act in any scenario. That's what Marcus says. Emma replied innocently. He says I play like I can read people's thoughts. Exactly. And with proper training, the right support, you could become not just a chess champion, but someone who could transform the world. Richard's instincts screamed danger. Mr. Clove, Emma's 7. She should be focused on second grade, not changing the world. Clove's smile was calm, but icy. Mr. Sterling, with respect, you don't grasp what you're dealing with. David Petrov wasn't just a player. He was a strategic genius who could have reshaped military intelligence, business deals, even global diplomacy. And you want to use a child to continue his work. I want to give Emma the tools to fulfill her destiny. David's methods, fully developed, could prevent wars, resolve disputes, foster peace by understanding human nature. It sounded noble, but Richard saw the ambition in Clove's eyes. This wasn't about peace, it was about control. Emma, Clove said, turning to her. Would you like to see something your father worked on? Before anyone could protest, he showed her a tablet with a chess position. This is the Petrov Protocol. Your father believed solving this puzzle would unlock the deepest secrets of human behavior. Emma studied it for under 30 seconds. Oh, that's simple. You move the queen to h4, then the knight to f6, and the opponent must respond to the check. But they don't see you're controlling their next 5 moves. The room went silent. Marcus paled. Sarah gasped. My God! Clove whispered. She sees it. She actually sees it. What does that mean? Richard demanded. Marcus answered, voice trembling. It means Emma doesn't just understand chess. She understands how to steer human decisions. That puzzle has been unsolved for 15 years. Masters have studied it with no answer. And Emma solved it in 30 seconds. Clove's eyes gleamed with something like greed. Mr. Sterling, you don't realize what you've been guarding. Emma doesn't just play chess. She reads minds through its patterns. Richard felt the ground shift. He thought he was protecting a gifted child. Now he saw he was guarding someone who could alter global power dynamics. She's not going with you, he said firmly. Mr. Sterling. Clove's tone hardened. That's not your call. That's when Richard noticed the security guards around the room, realizing their chess retreat had become a different kind of battlefield. Within hours, the facility's true nature emerged. The other children were moved elsewhere in the building. Emma, Sarah, Marcus, and Richard were confined to a lavish suite under the pretense of special treatment. They can't hold us here, Sarah said, pacing like a trapped animal. This is kidnapping. Officially, we're honored guests, Richard replied grimly. Clove's too clever for anything that looks illegal, but we're not leaving until Emma agrees to his program. Marcus was reviewing chess positions, with Emma, trying to keep her calm amid the rising tension. Emma, sweetie, your daddy taught you special moves. Did he mention special situations too? Emma nodded gravely. He said sometimes the best players know when not to play chess, when to walk away from the board. Wise man, Marcus muttered. That night, Richard's security team reached him through a hidden communicator. Sir, we're planning an extraction, but the facility is more secure than we thought. We need time. Time we don't have, Richard whispered. They're moving Emma tomorrow. The next morning, Clough arrived with Dr. Brenner and 2 others from David's Danger list. They wanted to run aptitude tests on Emma to fully map her father's methods. Absolutely not, Sarah said, standing in front of her daughter. Mrs. Johnson, Dr. Brenner said in thickly accented English, we're not asking. Emma's abilities are too vital to waste on youth tournaments. She belongs in a program to unlock her full potential. She belongs with her mother, Richard said, stepping forward. Mr. Sterling, you've been helpful in spotting and nurturing Emma's talent, but your role is done. Emma needs expert guidance now. Emma, who had been silent, spoke up. What if I don't want to go with you? Claude knelt to her level. Emma, you don't yet see what you're capable of. Your father's gift, properly honed, could solve problems humanity has faced for ages. Don't you want to help people? I do, Emma said thoughtfully. But Daddy told me good people ask permission, and bad people take without asking. Emma, we're not taking anything. We're offering opportunities. Emma looked at the adults around her, her 7-year-old face showing wisdom beyond her age. Daddy also taught me something special about chess. He said sometimes the best move is the one nobody sees coming. Before anyone could react, Emma pulled out a small chess timer Marcus had given her. With a hidden alarm, she pressed it, and smoke filled the room. Richard's security team crashed through the windows, repelling from helicopters. In the chaos, Richard grabbed Emma while Sarah and Marcus ran for the exit. Go, 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 Richard shouted, carrying Emma to the helicopter in the courtyard. As they lifted off, Emma looked at the facility below. Mr. Sterling, are we safe now? Richard held her close, finally grasping what David Petrov knew. Emma wasn't just a chess prodigy. She was a child who could reshape the world, and there would always be those who wanted her power. We're safe for now, Emma. But the real game is just starting. The helicopter soared toward dawn, carrying the world's most vital chess piece into an uncertain future. 6 months after Switzerland, Richard thought they'd found calm. Emma was homeschooled by top tutors, played chess under strict conditions, and seemed to thrive as a normal 8-year-old. But David Petrov's legacy held one final twist. Mr. Sterling, Emma said one evening as they played chess in his penthouse, I need to tell you something about my daddy. Richard looked up from the board, where Emma had just made another stunning move. What is it, sweetheart? He left me a message, a special one I was only meant to understand when I was older. Emma's voice carried a weight that tightened Richard's chest. What kind of message? Emma pulled a worn notebook from her backpack, one Richard hadn't seen before. This was hidden in my old chess set, the one Daddy gave me. I found it last week. Richard opened it with trembling hands. The first page was addressed to Emma in David's neat handwriting. My brilliant daughter, if you're reading this, the wolves have found you. But you're not prey, Emma. You're the hunter. Everything I taught you was preparation for this moment. The game isn't chess. It's life itself. And you, my love, are about to win. The notebook detailed profiles of everyone pursuing Emma. Claude, Brenner, even rivals Richard didn't know existed. More crucially, it held David's final strategy. Emma, Richard said slowly, do you understand what this means? I think so. Daddy knew they'd come for me. He knew someone good would help me. Someone like you. And he planned for us to stop them forever. How? Emma smiled with her father's confident look. By giving them what they want, but not how they expect. The next morning, Richard got a call that chilled him. Victor Claude was in New York, threatening to expose Richard's business dealings unless Emma agreed to meet. This ends now, Richard told Sarah and Marcus. Emma, what did your father's plan say about this? Emma opened the notebook to a page titled Endgame. Her small finger traced the words as she read. When they corner you, remember the best defense is an attack they never see coming. That afternoon, Richard entered the Plaza Hotel's Oak Room with Emma beside him. Claude sat at a corner table, with 2 bodyguards. Surprised Richard brought the child. Mr. Sterling, I asked to meet you alone. Emma wanted to come, Richard said, helping her into a chair. She has something to tell you. Claude leaned forward curious. And what's that, little one? Emma met his gaze with eyes far older than her 8 years. Mr. Claude, you want to use my daddy's chess methods to control people, but you don't understand what they really are. Enlighten me. They're not for controlling people. They're for understanding them. Daddy believed if you truly understand someone, you can help them make better choices, not force them to do what you want. Claude's smile was condescending. A sweet idea, but naive. Power is about control, Emma. Your father's methods could give nations huge advantages. That's where you're wrong, Emma said, pulling out a small recording device. Daddy taught me to always be 3 moves ahead. This conversation is being broadcast live to every major news network. Clove's face paled as Emma continued. Everyone's hearing you talk about using a child's chess skills to control people and nations. They know who you are and what you wanted to do to me. Richard felt a mix of pride and fear. Emma had just sprung the most intricate trap he'd ever seen. You see, Mr. Clove, Emma said, standing on her chair to meet his eyes. Daddy's biggest lesson wasn't about chess. It was about choosing to be good over powerful. And now, the world knows what you chose. Within hours, the story erupted across media platforms. Victor Clough, exposed trying to exploit a child prodigy for strategic gain, became an international outcast. The others on David's list quickly distanced themselves from anything tied to Emma. A week later, Richard found Emma in his office, setting up a chessboard. Want to play? She asked. Always, Richard replied, sitting across, all from her. Emma, what you did with Clove was incredibly brave and risky. Daddy always said the greatest victories protect others. Now, no one will try to use me to harm anyone. And your chess career? Your tournaments? Emma moved her first pawn with the same precision Richard recalled from their first game. I'll keep playing chess because I love it. But I'll also use what Daddy taught me to help people. Maybe as a teacher or counselor. Someone who solves problems. Richard moved his piece, awed by how this remarkable child had taught him about courage, purpose, and true wealth. Emma, you know, I'll always be here to support you, whatever you choose. I know, Mr. Sterling. That's what makes you good people. As they played, Richard reflected on how Emma had transformed his life. She'd shown him that true wealth wasn't in money, but in the impact you had on someone's world. He'd started trying to help a gifted child, but Emma had saved him from a life of empty success. Your move, Mr. Sterling, Emma said with a grin. Richard looked at the board and smiled. For the first time in years, he was exactly where he belonged, facing the most extraordinary person he'd ever met, learning that the best games weren't about winning, but the bonds you built along the way. You know what, Emma? I think I've already won. Emma's laughter filled the room like music, and Richard Sterling finally understood what it meant to be truly rich.